Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're watching the Zenith Glow Astrology YouTube channel. My name is Christina, and I am an astrologer, and I will be your host for today. Thank you for being here. So happy to have you all. I hope you are all doing well. We have some big stuff to talk about today, but before we get into it, I'm going to ask right up front, please, please, please like and subscribe to this video, to my channel if you haven't done so already. It's a wonderful way to support me, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to also let you guys know, in case you didn't already know, that if you're interested in learning astrology, I have developed a beginner's course, a foundational astrology course that will teach you all the basics and everything you know to get everything you need to know to get you started in astrology. It's going to teach you everything you already know. Yeah, it's going to help you get started in astrology if that's something that you're looking to pursue either as a career or if that's something that you just want to have a better understanding of so that you can listen to videos like this one and look at your chart and know exactly what the heck I'm talking about. So if that's something you're interested in, I will drop a link in the description box below where you can access that. And yeah, today we are talking about the upcoming eclipse. And before we get into it, I have written an ebook all about eclipses and their astrological significance. I recently revised and updated this ebook that is available on my website, and I will also drop a link in the description below where you can find that. It is something that you can dive into to get into the detail of how all of this works if you want to understand it on a deeper level, or if you just want to have a reference guide on hand, it's great for that. It's like $3 or a little bit more than $3. So that will be there for you if that's something you're interested in. All right, got it all out of the way. Let's talk about the upcoming eclipse. So we are now in eclipse season, which is something I discussed in my last new moon in Virgo video, which was actually like a portal into eclipse season because that new moon happened at the 0 degree of Virgo, and 0 acts as like a portal, right? A new beginning. And I forgot to mention, it was also a black moon, which means that we have 2 new moons in a single 30-day period. And so it had extra significance, but we'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about the Virgo eclipse. But this video is all about the Pisces eclipse, which is our first eclipse of eclipse season. So you're going to hear me say that a lot. Eclipse, eclipse, eclipse. So the first eclipse that we are experiencing will be on September 7th. It is a total lunar eclipse, which means that it is also a blood moon. That sounds very menacing. It really simply means that when a lunar eclipse occurs, it happens that the Earth moves between the sun and the moon. Okay, so the Earth is actually blocking the light of the sun from reaching the moon, and this is during a full moon. Okay, so during a full moon, the sun and the moon are opposite of each other. By the way, I talk about this in the ebook, and I explain it a lot more articulately than I'm doing right now. But the sun and the moon are in opposition to each other during a full moon, and during an eclipse, the Earth kind of squeezes in between the two. Okay, now what makes it a total eclipse is that the Earth totally blocks the light of the sun, or rather the moon, from being in opposition to the sun. And so the sun's rays of light actually refract around the Earth, and when they reach the moon, it creates this reddish orangish hue effect. Hence, they call it a blood moon because the moon will look kind of reddish. So that's something to make note of if you're wondering why. Sorry, my brain is thinking about something else while I'm trying to speak, and that just doesn't work for me. I shouldn't do that. I was just now trying to remember where exactly this eclipse will be visible from, because I don't think that I noted all of the places. I believe it's going to be visible in Australia and in parts of Asia. Let me look that up after I record this, and then I'm going to drop some text using the magic of editing so that you guys can see that, because you probably want to be able to see it, if you're in an area of the world that is actually going to be able to see it. So, because total lunar eclipses are somewhat rare. I mean, we usually, when we have lunar eclipses, we will more likely than not have a partial eclipse or a penumbral eclipse. So to have that total lunar eclipse is slightly more rare. And again, it has that cool blood moon effect. So if you're in a part of the world that can see that, I recommend checking that out. Let's see, what else do I have here? Did I write down anything important? Nope, I didn't. So let me pull up my information here. I'm a little scattered, guys. I'm sorry, but thanks for watching anyway. So yeah, this eclipse is going to be at 15 degrees, 24 minutes of Pisces, and it is our first in the eclipse season. So then it will be followed 2 weeks later by a solar eclipse in Virgo. We will do a special video just about that eclipse. Again, this one is just about the Pisces eclipse. This is occurring at 6:12 p.m. Universal Time, which is also 2:12 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're in the Eastern Time Zone, if you're not, convert it to your time zone, and there you go. So, lots of things are happening, and I'm not surprised that I'm a little scattered right now. I'm pretty sensitive to energy, and we are very much in the throes of this energy right now. With eclipses, we tend to feel the energetic impact of them up to like 7 or 8 weeks before they happen. We'll start to feel the energy, or we'll start to experience the impending themes of the eclipse as we are going to experience it in our own little unique way. Those things will start to trickle in 7 or 8 weeks before we experience the eclipse. And then, of course, the closer we get to the eclipse, it starts to get more intense. We start to feel it more acutely. We tend to feel the effects of the eclipse most acutely in the 3-day window around the actual event. And then it can take up to 6 months for the impacts of the eclipse to fully reveal themselves or come to fruition or take effect. And what kind of impact do eclipses have? Well, each one is unique, each one is different. But in general, eclipses are very important because they bring huge change and transformation to our lives. And they are a regular yearly occurrence. So, kind of interesting to think of that, right? Like, we have these big astrological events that are going to dramatically shift our trajectory, and yet they happen twice a year, sometimes more than twice a year. Eclipse seasons, I should say. Within each season, we have at least 2 eclipses, and sometimes more, but that's kind of, detail we don't need to address right now, because in this particular season, we have 2 eclipses, a lunar and a solar. The one we're talking about is the lunar eclipse. So there is a difference between lunar and solar eclipses. And again, I go into more detail about this in my ebook if you want to explore that. But in general, you can think of eclipses as heightening the energy of what would normally be a full moon or a new moon. Okay, so full moons coincide with lunar eclipses, and new moons coincide with solar eclipses. So it's kind of like, jacking up the energy and cranking it up to 11. Because the eclipse is going to bring in this kind of surge of intensity that forces us to change in ways that are specific to the eclipse. And those ways will coincide with the sign the eclipse is happening in, aspects that the eclipse is making at the time that it occurs, and then aspects that that eclipse will make to your own personal natal chart, as well as what house it falls in within your natal chart. So there's a lot of detail that goes into this, right? And it can be a lot to look at. So if you want to know how the eclipse is going to impact you, I recommend booking an appointment with an astrologer if you don't feel like getting into all the nitty-gritty detail on your own and trying to figure all this out. If you're more of a novice when it comes to astrology, I definitely recommend getting together with an astrologer. I'd be happy to do that for you, by the way, and I will drop a link below as to where you can book an appointment with me if that's something you're interested in. But in a nutshell, those are the things that you want to look at when you're determining How is this eclipse going to impact me? And also, is it going to impact me? Are we always impacted when there are eclipses? They bring huge energy, right? They've got this really big presence and they are creating dramatic shifts in our lives. But are we always experiencing that, twice a year, every 6 months? The answer in general is no. It very much depends on your individual chart. So typically what I see is that, eclipses will happen in the same signs that we have the north and south node of the moon within at a certain time, right? And those change every 18 months. So our eclipses, or the axis upon which we experience eclipses, are going to change every 18 months as well. And when we are going through those nodal shifts, usually someone will have either their nodes, or they will have personal planets, or just important angles or certain special factors in their chart that occur in the same sign or signs as the nodes. Okay. So then when we have eclipses that are happening in the same signs, they will activate those parts of our chart. And that's a time when we are undergoing big transformation. So it may be the case that you don't really have anything going on. In our case, in this particular time that we are in, let's say Virgo and Pisces, you might not really have stuff going on in Virgo and Pisces. So during these eclipse seasons, where we have eclipses in those signs, you're probably like getting a break. You've already gone through changes. Maybe you experienced changes with the Aries Libra eclipses, or maybe prior to that with the Scorpio Taurus eclipses. And now you're kind of getting a break, and you get to sit back and enjoy watching all your friends and family freak out while they undergo a bunch of changes. Because usually that's how it works. We have people in our lives that are experiencing those direct impacts. And that's what we call that, is the eclipse directly impacting you when it makes aspects to your chart that are within certain degrees or within the same energies that the eclipse is occurring in. Hopefully that's not too confusing. Again, I explain it a lot better in my ebook, but unfortunately, this is who you have in front of you today. A little bit slightly scattered, Christina. So hopefully I'm making sense. But yeah, so that is essentially how you determine if an eclipse is going to impact you. Now, if an eclipse is, let's say within 8 degrees, you could make it a smaller orb too if you want. But if it's within, 8 or so degrees of a planet in your chart or a major angle in your chart, you are most definitely undergoing a period of metamorphosis and transformation in your life. Your life's path is being shifted in a specific way. And you can figure out what area of your life is being impacted by looking at where the houses, or excuse me, in which house the eclipse will be occurring in your chart. Okay, so that's enough about that. And again, if you really want to get into this, just go look at my ebook because I explain it a lot better and you can really walk through it step by step. What I want to talk about is this particular eclipse, the energy of it, what makes it special, what can we anticipate as a result of it. But just know eclipses equal change and transformation, okay? And we will be feeling this energy collectively, even if you're not experiencing direct impacts to your chart. So, once again, it's a total lunar eclipse, which makes it a blood moon. And the other thing about this eclipse is that it is, Saturn is just recently moving into the sign of Pisces once again. So Saturn, this year ingressed into the sign of Aries, and it went retrograde in recent weeks, and now it is moving back into the sign of Pisces. This will be its final turn through Pisces before it's completely done. It's going to move back into Aries after it goes direct, and then it's done with Pisces, and it won't, circle back around to that again for another 28 years or so. And so we have this, even though Saturn is not making a direct aspect to the eclipse, they're about 10, no, they're more than 10. They're like 14 degrees apart from each other at the time of the eclipse. it's still carrying that tone, that emphasis, on Pisces. It's wanting us to focus on Pisces energy and Pisces themes, right? And then for each individual, wherever that lies in your chart, that area of life, that house is going to be lit up for you at this time in some way. Saturn has been teaching us important lessons within the sign of Pisces. It's been teaching us that there are no more gurus, that we have to cultivate spiritual authority. It wants each of us to, in our own way, become spiritual leaders. Whether that means that you are actually stepping up and becoming a leader for other people, or whether that simply means that you have cultivated enough spiritual discipline in yourself, in your life, to stand strong in your own integrity and be an example to other people who look to you, perhaps, for some kind of guidance or leadership, even if you're not doing that in an official capacity. And at the end of the day, Saturn wants us to rely on ourselves and to not be looking outside of ourselves for answers anymore, because each of us has a pipeline that taps into that spiritual knowledge, that taps into that spiritual connection where we can get the answers that we are looking for. Each of us has intuition. We have our own spiritual connection, our own way of communicating with that realm of existence. And part of the lessons of Saturn as it has transited through Pisces since early 2023 has been for us to cultivate a sense of discipline and to learn lessons within this realm of spirituality. And it's a big one, right? And it's not an accident that Neptune has been transiting in its home sign of Pisces, and then also recently ingressed into the sign of Aries around the same time that Saturn did. Neptune is going to dip back into Pisces again. So, with these retrograde cycles, with these planets going back into this sign, we're sort of wrapping up the final lessons, you could say. It's our last hurrah to get it right or to tie up any loose ends that may still be loose. And it also can be a time where we reap some rewards for the hard work that we've done. Just kind of depends on the person and how they've approached this experience. But this is being highlighted through this eclipse because the eclipse is bringing change and transformation. Now, once again, a full moon, lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses happen during full moons. So we have that full moon energy being heightened at the time of the eclipse. So, yes, culmination, harvest, illumination. These are topics that are being very much intensified at this time, as well as shedding and release and letting go. And so, what we are looking at with this particular eclipse, now, mind you, it's going to be different depending on what house it occurs in your chart. But general themes that will be emanating through this eclipse involve letting go of the lower octaves of Pisces. Okay. And one of the big things, especially with Saturn being there, is freeing ourselves from victim mentality, right? And part of that goes in with the spiritual discipline and like no more gurus and that whole thing, right? We're not allowing ourselves to be victimized by other people because we are standing strong in our own spiritual knowing, right? No one can take advantage of you if you are already relying on yourself and trusting yourself to find the right answers, right? If your intuition is strongly honed, then no one can fool you, no one can trick you, right? No one can turn you into a victim. And I do think that it's noteworthy that, again, Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and it will also be shifting back into Pisces through its retrograde cycle, though it is not quite there yet. But with Neptune being the ruler of Pisces, then it is ruling this eclipse. Neptune really asks us to connect on those deep spiritual levels, to listen to our intuition. And in the tarot, the Hanged Man Major Arcana card is associated with Neptune, which is interesting because on the one hand, that card has to do with sacrifice. On the other hand, that card has to do with the kind of altered perception that results from that sacrifice. And sometimes when we make sacrifices, it's not in the way that we think or we might normally associate sacrifice. So, in other words, sometimes we have to sacrifice the devil we know, right? For the devil we don't, if that makes sense. Sometimes we hold on to behaviors or perceptions that are really not serving us, that are not very healthy, but they are comfortable because they're things that we've been doing our whole lives, right? It's something that we know how to do, even if it actually stretches us in ways that are not good for us. So sometimes we have to sacrifice things like that. And sometimes when we do that, it shifts our perception. So at other times, we may be feeling victimized in our lives. We may be feeling powerless. But if we are able to shift our perception, those feelings will actually change and we can actually alchemize our experience into something more empowering. So these are some of the themes that are on par with this lunar eclipse, because again, this is going to be about letting go of what doesn't serve us anymore. Now, mind you, eclipses, they come in pairs, at least pairs, sometimes more, but again, I'm not going to get into that now. And generally speaking, we talk about lunar eclipses being like a door closing in your life. Things are coming to an end. You're letting go of stuff that doesn't work for you anymore, and you are experiencing conclusions in those particular facets of your life. But at the same time, the solar eclipse is symbolizing a door opening. So a door closes and then one opens, right? So we have something being ushered in a couple weeks after this full moon, and it's going to be the next chapter of the story. But the two are intrinsically tied together. The two events are not separate, they are part of the same process. So, this is just the first step in the eclipse season process. And the first step is to make way. We have to make room for what is coming in next. So, that involves letting go of stuff that's not serving us anymore. And that stuff has to do with Pisces. And again, the lower expressions of Pisces can relate to victimhood, accepting the unacceptable, self sacrifice that's not particularly healthy or worth your while. um, and having like misperceptions of things because you're not being able to see clearly, right? There's also this energy of Pisces that can come about in a more negative aspect, wherein Pisces is very imaginative and very able to dream big, but there's a lack of action. There's no practical application. And so those dreams forever exist in the imaginary realms and they never come to fruition in the tangible realms. And so having Saturn moving back into Pisces, again, at the time of this eclipse, it might be highlighting this theme for us. Like, hey, do you always come up with dreams and ideas and then never follow through on them? Saturn wants you to cultivate discipline so that you can apply these things in a practical way and actually make something real out of it, right? Uh, so these are things that might show up for you at the time of this eclipse. I also want to point out, being a full moon and being extra intensified because of the eclipse effect, it is likely that we are going to experience very heightened emotions at the time of this eclipse. So just be conscious of that, especially if this is aspecting your chart directly. Whew, eclipses can bring really big emotional releases, and I am speaking from personal experience on that one. So definitely, practice self-care, be conscious of this, and let yourself flow through it. That's one of the higher expressions of Pisces. Flow, allowing yourself to trust, to surrender, to have faith. And ultimately, that's what we are being compelled toward at this time, is to move into a sense of faith. Whatever that means for you doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it's not, who we all believe something slightly different. And whatever works for you in your personal belief system it's asking you to have faith in that belief system and to trust in the benevolence of the universe and to follow your own intuition and to know you are where you are meant to be, whatever's going on in your life, and to surrender to that process. And we need to relinquish whatever is not serving our highest good anymore. And really, that's what this is all about. And so it would behoove you during this eclipse to maybe do a little bit of meditation. And I'm not talking like get crazy transcendental meditation or like, not that there's anything wrong with that if you're into that, but I'm not saying that it has to be like extreme, extreme meditation for risk takers or anything like that. I'm just saying to take some time out to go inward and to listen to yourself and to feel your emotions and to acknowledge what's going on within you. Because so often, especially, if you're out working in the 3D world and, living your life like most people do, we have demands in our day to day that are going to draw our focus away from our center, from who we truly are, right? And that's okay. That's normal. That's kind of the Virgo side of reality, right? Dealing with the day-to-day stuff. But Virgo and Pisces balance each other, right? They need each other to be balanced. And so, on the one hand, yes, we need to be pulled down into the practical application of reality, which can be like a Virgo process. On the other hand, if we are constantly enveloped in the day-to-day stuff and we're never pausing to get quiet and listen and pay attention to what's going on inwardly, then we're going to miss that stuff and we're not going to be able to integrate it. And there's actually a lot of richness to be found there, right? And you'd be amazed if you don't usually do this. You'd be amazed at what you start to notice when you start paying attention, when you start getting quiet, when you start listening to your breath, when you start observing your thoughts, things like that. There's a whole lot going on behind the scenes, so to speak, which is interesting, right? Pisces rules the 12th house. The 12th house is what's hidden from us, right? From our normal view. This is a time of illumination when we get to peek behind the curtain, when we get to see what is going on back there or under there, behind there, whatever. So this is the time to tune in. Okay, this is the time to give yourself space. This is the time to practice self-care. This is the time to go into your heart. And okay, so let's pull up the chart because man, I haven't even looked at the chart yet. Whoop. All right. So here's our chart for the eclipse, and we do have some prominent things going on. Apart from Saturn moving into Pisces, we also have the eclipse, aka full moon axis, aspecting the nodal axis. It's actually conjunct. So the sun will be in Virgo conjunct the south node, while the moon is in Pisces conjunct the north node. Each of those points is forming an angle to Jupiter in Cancer. So Jupiter is sextile with the sun, and it is trine with the moon, as well as the nodes, right? That's a significant thing. Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces, and so it actually holds some strong energy at this time as well. Not to mention Jupiter's just like really vibing in Cancer because it really likes being there. So that's some good energy. That's a positive aspect that it's forming to this axis. So there is potential for truth and freedom coming through this eclipse. What kind of freedom? What kind of freedom? It's not really like the type of freedom that Uranus gives us, right? Where Uranus is like, F the system and let's break you out of this in the most traumatic way possible. It's a little bit softer than that. It's more like a quiet letting go. It's more like the quiet realization we get when we recognize something that's not working for us. When we finally have that aha moment, when we're able to zoom out and get the bigger picture and finally see things clearly, then we can go, oh, that's the missing piece of the puzzle. That's what I've been doing wrong, or that's what I've been needing to do all along. So this is going to help us move into alignment with our soul's trajectory, each of us individually. We each have a path that we are on. We have a purpose that our soul is driving us toward, right? An evolutionary purpose. That is symbolic of the nodes at this time. There is a spiritual purpose each of us is working towards, whether we're conscious of that or not. We have an opportunity at the time of this eclipse to step into greater alignment with that, to let go of what's been in our way, even if that's stuff going on within ourselves, right? And to that end, we have the ruler of the sun at this time, because the sun is in Virgo. So the ruler of Virgo is Mercury. We have Mercury conjunct the sun. So it is part of this eclipse as well, right? Mercury rules our thoughts. So we sort of have like thought versus emotion here, right? Because Mercury is literally opposite of the moon at this time, and it's in its home sign of Virgo. So that's very strong energy. So it could be that our thoughts are highlighted for us right now. Like, how are we perceiving ourselves in our reality? Well, at the same time, we have Venus at 15 degrees of Leo, exactly semi-sextile to the sun at the time of this eclipse. And she is also sextile with Mars in Libra, a sign that she rules. So there is as well, in addition to this thought Mercury stuff that's happening, there's also this theme about self-worth coming into the picture, right? What am I worth? And do I sacrifice that for the perceived greater good? Or because I'm afraid to make waves with other people? Or because I have previously thought that maybe this was the right thing to do? Or that this is how I'm supposed to live my life? Or this is what it means to be a spiritual person, or whatever. Like, there's a lot of different ways that this can show up for people, but the idea of it is that we each have this innate soul center within us, right? And that little fire that burns within us, which, by the way, we could say is symbolized by Vesta, goddess asteroid Vesta, who, by the way, is making an important aspect at this time. She is trine with Saturn, recently moved into Pisces. She's in Scorpio, right? 27 degrees of Scorpio, calling for inner transformation as we cultivate stronger spiritual discipline. So we are being driven inward to the center to ask ourselves, what is the fire that burns within me? What inspires me? What lights me up? What makes me unique? What drives me to keep going even when I'm tired, even when I start to lose my faith a little bit, even when I have doubts? We're being driven inward towards that inner fire, and we are then being asked to evaluate that honestly, like to really take a look at that and how we've been using that or not using it, and how we have allowed others to use it, right? Because relationship is coming into this, right? We've got Venus, we've got Mars and Libra, those are making aspects. So we're being called to look at these things because, again, all of this is sort of fine-tuning that spiritual purpose. And it's allowing us space to contemplate and then make decisions. Okay, what needs to go? What have I been clinging to? What have I been holding on to? Have you ever done that? Have you ever held on to something, but your mind was elsewhere? And then suddenly you realized, I was holding on to this and like my fingers hurt, my knuckles hurt. Like I was gripping that really tightly and I didn't even realize it. Maybe in your sleep, maybe you wake up, oh, I was clenching my jaw or whatever, watching a movie or something. You're doing something unconsciously, right? Your focus is elsewhere, not realizing that you're actually doing something that makes you uncomfortable all the while. These are the types of things that are coming up right now. And of course, I'm speaking metaphorically, although I don't know, maybe you're clenching your fists or maybe you clench your jaw in your sleep. I do sometimes. But the point of this is that Eclipses serve the purpose of realigning our path, right? We kind of fall into a comfortable groove, and that's the overarching spiritual purpose that they serve, is to give us a little nudge in a different direction, to help us make adjustments so that we can get into better alignment with where we truly need to go, with what our soul really wants for us, with what we truly need to be focusing on and learning, right? And that's different for all of us, but the overarching themes at this time are the same. And so we are being called to step into our own personal, whatever that means to us, spiritual leadership. You get to determine your path, but you also determine your worth, right? You get to decide what you're worth, and what you accept from other people helps determine that as well, right? When you accept the unacceptable, that is you making a declaration about what you are worth. And in order for us to declare fairly what we are worth and to live in alignment with that inner light that burns within us, we have to sometimes set boundaries. We have to sometimes let go of things, whether that's thought patterns, maybe unhealthy emotional patterns, behavioral patterns, maybe relationship patterns, etc. But there are things that we need to relinquish that maybe were comfortably familiar but not necessarily helpful for us in order to get into better alignment. And ultimately, what we're doing is we're making space. Because when we welcome in the new moon in Virgo, which will happen on the 21st of September, it's going to usher in new things, new beginnings, opportunities that can show up again in a whole plethora of ways, depending on who you are and what's going on in your chart. It's going to be different for all of us, but the point, the similarity within it is that it is going to represent change. And that can be scary, but it can also be exciting. So, but we have to make some room for that. And it is likely, let's go ahead and turn this off. It is likely that with this lunar eclipse, there's going to be heightened emotion. You're going to experience all kinds of things. It's very common, especially with Pisces energy, to experience some grief. So don't be surprised if you do feel some grief. Maybe there are things you thought that you had let go of, but they're still kind of lingering there, hidden, 12th house, in the background. These are things that are coming up to be purged at this time. They are being illuminated by the full moon, right? So that we can recognize them for what they are. Because it's only when things are lurking in the shadows, unrecognized, that they can still hold power over us or influence over us. So once we apply recognition to these things and we can consciously let them go, it may be a little bit painful. It may be a little bit difficult emotionally, a little bit of turmoil going on emotionally, but at the end of the day, we have this fresh space. We can breathe a little bit, right? Maybe our mind isn't quite so cluttered like it was. Maybe we can let go. Maybe we've been struggling for a very long time, and now is the time to put down the burden, right? This is going to show up for everybody in different ways. Again, I'm just giving examples and metaphors, and I'm hoping that this resonates with you. But the bottom line is that this is an intense period that we are in. We're only a week away from this. We are feeling this energy flooding in right now, okay? This is part of the same eclipse cycle as the Virgo moon, so the two are intrinsically tied together. A door is closing with this first one. With the next eclipse, a door is opening. And I'm not saying that it's going to manifest in a linear way like that, but that is the overarching significance of this eclipse season. So you might experience things a little bit uniquely to that. But at the end of the day, we're all being shifted into a different trajectory. And again, that can be a little bit stressful. So give yourself some space. Even if these are big, beautiful changes that you've been waiting for and you're like, yes, I'm freaking excited for this. Let's do it. Like, give yourself some space. Give yourself some space, because oftentimes, in my experience, eclipses can kind of hit you out of nowhere. Like you think it's all good, and then suddenly, bam, something is there and it triggers you. And it can be very, very intense. So give yourself space to contemplate, to meditate, to breathe. Understand that these are the themes that are at play for us right now. And know that we've got another eclipse coming, but it's all good. It's all good. These are big, beautiful changes that are ultimately serving your highest good by helping to align you with your highest purpose, right? With your highest expression that you can hold and whatever you came here to do as an individual soul, right? We all have our own unique path, and this eclipse is here to help align you with it. Whew. Good Lord, you guys. I don't know what it is, but this was incredibly difficult for me to record. And I have no idea why. I need to check where the moon is right now. It was in Sagittarius, which is normally a good vibe for me because I have a stellium in Sagittarius and I usually get really productive and I'm very good at communicating when these things happen. But it might have crossed over my Neptune. And that's when things start to break down a little bit for me. So if this was frustrating for you to watch, I don't blame you. But I want to say thank you for hanging out with me and making it this far. I really appreciate your support. Once again, please like and subscribe if you can, if you will, if you want to. I would greatly appreciate that. Share this with whomever you want. It is open, free to the public. I want to get the message out there if you think it's going to help somebody. That's really what I'm doing here is I'm trying to help folks. And I'm sharing what I'm passionate about, even if I do it in kind of wonky ways sometimes. So I hope you all have a beautiful total blood moon lunar eclipse experience. If you're in a part of the world where you can see that, kudos to you. I hope it's a beautiful, beautiful experience, and maybe you can get some cool pictures of that. Send them my way if you do. Otherwise, yes, many blessings to you all. May you be changed and transformed into your highest expression. May you flow and roll with those changes. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, my name is Christina. I love you all. I will catch you later. Bye.